This conference will now be recorded.
All right, we'll call to order the select board at 6:04 PM on December 17th. The first order of business is the fire truck contract. So the price now is the $1,050,000, which is what was approved at town meeting. Town council has looked it over. No further comments, so.
What about is the value of our vehicle the one we're putting?
Yeah, it is on the appendix to this, and it was 60,000, I think.
Yeah,
$60,000.
So is it 1,050,000 plus 60, or is it 1,050,000 minus 60?
1,050,000 plus 60, so it was one.
Was 1,110,000.
10,000 less 60.
Minus
Okay.
60.
That's fine.
Yeah. But at least they got it. I know.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a motion to approve the contract?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion, comments? We'll call a vote,
Yes.
Yes.
and yes, it's unanimous
Thanks for
approval.
taking the time to work with them. I'm glad we got it to what we approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, ARPA funds, so.
Thanks, Sean.
Sean,
Easy.
you can stay if you want.
Exciting. Exciting.
Just get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So ARPA funds, thankfully, the pickup truck for the highway is eligible. We can put $62,555 towards that, and that will count as an obligation.
Thanks for doing the calculations, gentlemen. That's all we have left, but I guess it is.
So I would move that we allocate the $62,555.03 to the highway pickup truck
I will second.
and modify the community center obligation to $33,000 and the historical commission obligation to $0, due to the
Contract award.
contract requirement.
Second.
She said.
Yeah, any other discussion? Call vote,
Yes.
Yes.
and yes, so that's unanimously approved as well.
What was the amount? 65,
62,500.
555, was it?
What's that?
What was the amount?
62,555 towards the pickup truck. So, and Rob, do you wanna talk about the historical commission?
Well, yeah, just briefly, thank you for letting us know about the glitch in the encumbering those funds that we had planned to use for hiring a consultant for the historic district nomination. Since then, the historical commission met last week to discuss what we're doing and how we're doing it, because we were just had been planning to go out for proposals for the consultant using the ARPA funds. What we're planning to do now, while this is still in flux, is we have the $4,000 that was appropriated at the special town meeting in November for the historical commission to use for consultant. What we're thinking about doing with your approval is to break the scope of work into two separate scopes. The first step would be for the consultant or a consultant to help us with an educational process leading to a poll of the property owners in the historic district, which is a step we need to do in any case. And we think that's well within less than the $4,000, the work. We expect to be well less than the $4,000. With the historic district nomination, and I know, Justin, you were at the informal meeting we had back in October, the state Mass Historical says, basically, as long, if we can only proceed with the historic district nomination if a majority of the property owners in the district are not opposed. It's just kind of a backwards way of looking at it. So we need to go through that process, and we're thinking do that now over the next few months with that $4,000. Then if we need to go back to town meeting in May, we already have completed that step. We're using the time effectively. And we also would have, assuming it's a positive response from the property owners in the proposed district, we have that to build on, that we have that step completed, and it will give the rest of the town confidence that this is a project that's worth continuing with. The contrary is, and Mass Historical made this very clear, if there is a majority opposed to it, it's going to stop anyhow. They will not accept the nomination if there's a majority opposed to the district. So we think that would be a good step for us to move forward with the funds that we have available and let us build momentum toward a May town meeting if that's what's necessary.
Sounds pretty logical.
We're also looking at some additional grants, which we had planned to do in any case, with possibly with Housatonic Heritage, Preservation Mass. There was a grant opportunity with Mass Historical Commission, but that window has closed. That happened back in November, unfortunately. So we're not eligible for that. That window for that grant has closed until next year. But we are exploring other alternatives. So just wanted to let you know what we're doing, and appreciate your help and moving us along.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks for the update.
Thank you, Lou.
I think that's a green light to go forward as you set forth. That makes sense.
But we'll work with Roger on the procurement process for hiring the consultant. I mean, this first phase will just be a few $1,000s, so I know that's a slightly different process. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. The community center pavilion project up next.
This is a support letter on the process that that has been submitted for moving forward with the pavilion. That was that Dennis and Mark have asked the select board to sign.
What's the critical difference, since I'm seeing this for the first time now today? What is the critical difference between this version and last week's version?
Okay, the 44% or $81,000, that's two components of that. The 29,000 that was recommitted for the lighting at the MCC, and the 52,000 that was considered clawback of funds that were paid for through ARPA.
So
ARPA.
So
Clawback, that means
from the
From the truck.
from the upcoming town meeting, when it's clawed back
Gotcha.
from those items.
that's a term the federal government likes to use.
So the difference would be 65,000,
Yeah,
which if we end up moving forward with it, would be raised at the next town meeting.
yes, I believe there was mention of free cash being used for that purpose.
The net result of which would be the pavilion and the foundation and lighting.
And the accessible walkway.
The ADA accessible,
Since they did everything but the bathroom, right?
Right.
That's part of that,
not including
but
that.
not including the bathroom.
hopefully at a future time, the bathroom would be a consideration for the board.
Just don't. It's still frustrating to all of us, and I think to all of
To
you
everyone.
as well, to everyone, that nobody, I was talking to someone from the Collins Center today. She's
Sure.
like, our town is a huge pavilion, we only have porta potties. Like, I can't think of anyone that has bathrooms with a pavilion except for French Park, which has an enormous set of facilities in addition to whatever pavilion space they have. I think it's outrageous. But preaching to the choir.
Alright, if we're all good, we'll just go ahead and send a letter.
Mhm.
Thank you for your support on that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Come a long road, hasn't it?
Yeah, they rebuilt Notre Dame and it takes.
There's a few $1 billion difference.
At least it
Time
happened
frame.
before.
It's
Before the general
building.
store got open.
Yeah, you beat the general store back and won't You did Notre Dame quicker.
So I think next up, we have employee handbook, but
Okay.
Jim, if you're here, we're gonna address you
I
first.
think you were unanticipated,
Yeah.
because it was certainly unanticipated for me,
Yeah.
to get a call from another vendor today looking for payment.
Yeah.
The list is pretty long. Now I checked my email this afternoon, I found out that Peckham hasn't been paid yet for paving art school, sounds like, right?
They haven't. I sent an invoice earlier this month, and the accountants were looking for some other information. For some reason, they were looking for contracts. And so they didn't pay it, they didn't send out the check that first time around, so now I have submitted them some information that wasn't really a contract, but they all of a sudden decided that that was okay. And then I've sent them another piece of information from Peckham, because from what I got from the information from Peckham, was that they're effectively, because it went through chapter 90, there was no contract, it was just an agreement through chapter 90.
Well, the agreement was through Berkshire Regional Planning, actually, through the group purchasing. program.
Yeah,
That's where the agreement was.
Yeah.
And when we review the all awards letter that they send in towards the end of June, 1st of July, it's a DocuSign situation. You just go through and you approve all the ones that you had on the bid sheet. You know, there's hundreds of items being out on the bid sheet. We only fill in maybe a dozen, 15, 20.
Yeah, so I did, I sent, on the Indus document, Indus was one there, I sent Indus, I sent the accountants the Berkshire County Regional Planning bid sheet. I sent them the contract, I just sent them the contract between, that wasn't good enough. Then I sent them I just sent them the contract between Indus and Berkshire Regional Planning.
It won't be good for them, because that purchase price came from Combis. On their invoice where it says Monterey, it says, what's the acronym that Combis Estate Bid uses? OSD or?
Yeah, OSD, yeah,
That's right, it's right on there.
on the Indus invoice.
Yeah, so that pricing came from State Bid.
Okay.
Not from Berkshire Regional.
So I had sent it to them.
So you can call Becky and tell her that, don't worry about it, because that was off the State Bid.
All right, well, I'll have to get back in touch. Well, the accountants said they were okay with whatever I sent them. So we'll move forward with that. Those two have been taken care of.
For me, it's a bigger picture. This has been going on for several months, and I've had a number of people call looking for payment. And it's getting kind of old. It's starting to, I feel, reflect badly on me personally, because as I sent an email about a month ago, I built a lot of professional relationships over my lifetime, you know. Fella happened to be in a meeting at Marquette Ford with some of their brass. Heard they were waiting on payment from us. I still do a lot of business with them. And you reached out, it's kind of a tough situation to get myself into, that I didn't create.
It's very frustrating, and
I know the how. I wanna know the how we're moving forward. Because this is no way to conduct business, because I'm gonna be calling them next year to fog seal, Sandusfield Road. I'd be surprised if they even return my phone call now, not only that, but we'll certainly go way back to the end of the list.
But what else is on the list? That's outstanding now. Is there stuff outstanding now?
Well, I don't know as though there is, other than I just found out that Peckham one.
Yeah, so everything else we got caught up on. Everything else has been caught up on. So in those two.
But that's not my point. My point is that there have been a number of others that I spelled out in an email to you all a month or so ago. We were put on cash with CNC Hydraulics. Awesome Products shut us off.
And I just want to explain, those were previous invoices that I had to deal with that came, like the first one, I called them up and they didn't have a problem with it. And it was an invoice that didn't even, I took care of those two. And Lawson was another one that I know initially there was some in the previous fiscal year because I was trying to get caught up on things, but those were all taken care of before the end of the fiscal year.
Again, how we got where we are, I know there's a transitional period. But I need assurance that that there's a new plan in place to go with this, to process these invoices. And these people are gonna get paid properly,
I have a question. Are most of the invoices contracts or are they everyday invoices? It sounds like the road is a contract. Are you saying everyday inventory?
That's actually more like an everyday, because there's essentially just, it gets set up through chapter 90 and then it comes through and then the invoice just comes through, so.
And chapter 90 has some to do with it, but not much.
Yeah.
The project has to be approved in the chapter 90 program before we spend the money. You all sign off on that, which I think actually is changing. I don't think that that's gonna be a requirement anymore. As long as the funds are in our chapter 90 account and all the paperwork is correct, the select board won't have to sign off on it because the funds are already there. And that's a reimbursement program anyway.
It's just, they sort of create these they create these regional contracts or like group contracts. That's what is referring to the Berkshire County Regional Combis is the same thing. It's just a contract that, it's not really us signing a contract physically, but it's us saying that we've agreed through this other buying program to use them. So
I guess
to your point, it's like, it really is like a day-to-day contract. It's like a typical contract.
I'm a little confused though. If we have an invoice, why does the accountant need to see a contract? They have an invoice and we have to pay the people for the work they've done. And I would like to see a process that doesn't
They're
involve
very
that.
large sums of money.
It was
Right.
confusing too, because at one point, the accountant asked for Jim to sign it, which would have said that it was completed. So I was like, well, if I got the invoice, then to me, it's completed, because Jim said it's completed.
Right.
So they were looking for something else, I guess, but I don't know why all of a sudden on these they decided to do it.
it's very frustrating, and I think there's the town administrator transition. I think first and foremost, we got behind, there's no doubt. Had a lot on our plates, got behind, we've had, I don't need to run the list. I got very frustrated when I got the email today, so I went right to Roger and Eric, who's our accountant, and I said, what's going on? We just need to pay these. And Eric said, well, Jim needs to sign the invoice, and he said, I need to know it's completed to satisfaction. And I said, well, Jim's been asking us to pay these, so I'm pretty sure it's been completed to satisfaction. And Roger's signature is gonna suffice here, because Jim's on medical leave.
Right.
So it's mostly, I think, just being on top of it and submitting it. Roger submitted those a couple of weeks or pay periods ago, and they denied it, which is frustrating. I think it's a little bit of telling them to, maybe just getting them getting the accountant the paperwork that they need, and also just telling them to not be so rigid.
I think they're trying to cover their own tails on that, not just.
Yeah, but they're covering their own tails in a way that's becoming a problem for us getting business accomplished in a timely fashion, and that's not okay.
When, just so everyone knows, when Southern Berkshire asked for a whole bunch of money 2 years ago, our financial team wouldn't cut them the check because it was above 10,000.
Right.
So we went to the other 5 towns and said, well, what's your contract with Southern Berkshire? No one else has a contract with Southern Berkshire. So they're being a little rigid, but I think we just have to work with it, get them whatever they need. And I think at this point, I think fire, we got caught up, if I'm not mistaken.
Everybody's caught up.
Except chapter 90, and then we just gotta make like a policy of like 30 days. And that's that. We tried to hire someone from a neighboring town to help with the highway bills. She was willing to come on Tuesday and Wednesday for 3 hours each. She wanted 28 an hour. Which, it's a small price to pay to keep caught up, but it raises parity issues with other employees, which I think is.
That's a very specialized skill set.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a
I think
lot
you're
to know.
foolish not to.
And Sean did my job for years, he knows he's talking about.
Yeah.
This wasn't an issue before.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, it changed. Obviously, with people sitting in that office, things changed.
But it
Things
sounds
aren't-
like it's
things
not
aren't-
just that.
Things aren't flowing smoothly. You're gonna have to recreate the wheel here and figure this out, because this isn't working. Like Jim said, it looks bad on my shoulders, Jim's shoulders. The word is out on the street that Monterey doesn't pay their bills for 30, 60, 90, 180 days. And they're starting to wonder whether they wanna send us products or not, so. It doesn't look good on the department head shoulders, and the switch over, Roger's a great guy, don't get me wrong. The switch over has made the department, the biggest departments in the town, this hurt us big time. I'm still the emails are still coming through I'm getting them from Roger, I'm getting them from the AT&T. It's just one more thing that I have to deal with, one more email, 2 more, 6 more emails, because the bills haven't been paid for whatever reason, so.
Are we not caught up at AT&T now?
No, no, no problem.
But it's just happening.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's gotten to a point, I think, where we really need to take a hard look at it. If you got somebody on the hook who wants $28 an hour for a part-time job.
I think so. I think we just need to basically justify it as this is not a secretary, this is a almost managerial. I know in New Marlboro, her title is highway office manager. Because it just does raise questions of why is the secretary making this and a full-time so-and-so making this, which are.
I'm sorry, that particular individual you're referring to, I know is, very, very good at what they do.
Yeah.
And I know that they handle a lot of, I'm trying to think of the right way to put it, but a lot of the specialized areas, state aid, reimbursement programs, and a lot of other very small things that I normally do on a day-to-day basis, and if there's somebody like that will help out.
Could you, I think maybe what would be helpful here is if we could have just a brief job description and kind of point out those small kind of things that are more than just filling out a bill sheet. And if they're there which I believe you, then we can say this person's making this money because they are a chapter 90 specialist and they do OSHA and they do X, Y, and Z that's more than taking minutes for the Parks Commission or something. Because we do have, I emailed her last week and said, we couldn't do that price, not because we didn't have the money, but because of that parity. I mean, we had someone quit last month over the parity issue, and it's been ongoing for the last, as long as I've been around, because we don't have unions, and we don't have a pay scale with, different levels, and we hire people at different rates, and so it does sometimes cause a little bit of tension here and there.
I think that if you have a legitimate job description, if you advertise a position appropriately for the right amount of time, everybody has a fair shot applying for that position. And I would challenge anybody to do the work that that particular individual does for a current employer.
Just for clarity, we're not disagreeing with you.
Right.
We're relating to that we had someone quit because we were offering that position $2, actually $1.20 more an hour than they were making. And like, being able to explain why that is a specialist position and not just a secretary answering the phone.
Right.
And being able to lay out, here are the specialized skills that they have, makes clear what that discrepancy is a result of, because it is a specialized skill, but we can't make that list, but you guys can probably make it right off the top of your head.
Right.
And having that gives us a tool to explain why the positions aren't comparable. Because they're not.
I mean, I think if we could do that, we could potentially go back and see if she's still willing to do that 6 hours a week. And that might answer some of because we took your concerns and we said, what can we do? And so we reached out to her and kind of got very close, and then it was the timing of that parity question and then that ask, and not being able to really say, this is why it's worth it. But if we can come up with that list and say, here's the OSHA or the Chapter 90 and these things that are more than secretary, then maybe we can go back and see if she's still up for it. She seemed excited about it to some degree. She was gonna do maybe, I think she offered Tuesday and Wednesday 1 to 4. And just hit those hard bills, the ones that are a little more complicated because they're on combis or they're not Napa.
There's a bunch of them. There's Greater Boston Police Council, that's where the pickup truck's coming from. The plow truck is on Sourcewell. It's wherever the better pricing is.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah.
I'll write some up for you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Joe.
And then you'll have that, and I still would think you probably should advertise it if you haven't.
Well, what we're going on is we've advertised in my time on the board, the whole time I've been on the board, for an office assistant and manager. We had someone in here for a couple of months, 2 years ago. And in the last year, we've advertised twice. And so we're going off of, we've looked for years and months, and we've advertised a couple times. And this is hiring out a portion of that job, but kind of going on that basis that we've been looking. We've advertised for that position. I don't even want to count how many times since I've been on the board in different iterations, and that's kind of why we had been negotiating with her, and she wanted a little bit more, but she wanted a bit more, and it's just that parity. But if you get up that list together and we'll say, these are the responsibilities, and we can come up with a title for it that kind of sets it apart from.
I'll put that list together tomorrow. I think in time well spent, it'll take a lot off of you, it'll take a lot off of Roger, it'll take a lot off of me, and we can put something together and have the right person in that spot. Very cool.
Been a headache, so sorry about that.
So I need another one.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No,
Thank you.
have a good holiday.
Thanks.
Have a really good
Take care.
holiday.
Thank you.
See you. See you, Sean.
So briefly on the employee policies, I met with Lindsay again today, we went through 14 of the policies. There's like an endless number of them, I think there's 64. Um, I don't, it doesn't seem to me like there's a lot of stuff that we need to, like, there's nothing significant, we're sort of just bringing it in line with what we do. I consulted with Roger to make sure that, it's in line with what we're currently doing, cause a lot of the questions on stuff were like about bereavement leave, what are we currently doing, what's normal, other places, that kind of stuff. So there isn't a lot that you guys need to weigh in on. I think the one change that I do want you to know about is that, there's currently a thing in there that says the standard work week is 5 consecutive days, Monday to Friday. And really, there's not that many employees that are working that. So Roger and I talked about it and thought that maybe we should go to, it's a 40-hour week as defined by the particular job. Lindsay thinks that's okay, but I also wanted to run it by you.
That makes sense. I mean,
There's just so many positions that have, like, the police have
they have
different
long
hours.
shifts too, a lot of them work double shifts.
And we've got some of the highway department working, on a Sunday instead of a weekday, and I mean, at some point, you can't say it's the regular work schedule when relatively few employees are actually working that schedule. It might make sense to say a full-time employee is 40 hours a week, whenever those hours are.
Well, the police changed.
Yeah.
A lot too.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Double checking to make sure. And I feel like that's pretty much all of the major issues that I wanted to consult with you with. She's gonna work on that stuff, and at some point it'll come past you. But those were there is one other thing. So going back to both the anti-discrimination and sexual harassment thing, we once again need two people to be there as the point people. We don't have an HR person. One person is the TA, that's the logical one, but we need a second one. One option is to do the chair of the select board. Lindsay suggested we maybe reach out, because obviously the meeting was after I met with you, to MIA, and find out if the EAP ever deal with those.
They
don't-
might be really interested in doing a good job.
I
They
mean,
don't have to make a big
right.
payout down the road.
So I don't know
Well, that's
if
a good point.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if they'd be willing,
Yeah,
but it
what
seems
you
like
wish
that
for.
we're at least worth asking. The other alternative is that if we decide we do wanna hire an HR consultant to work X number of hours in the future, that person could be on there, but we have to pick a second person. That's really what it comes down to. So I guess Roger can reach out to Maya.
Yeah, I can
And
ask.
once we have that
Sure.
answer, then we can make a call on it, but I just wanted to give you a heads up on it. You guys have anything for me?
For the personnel policy?
Yeah.
They're doing a good job.
Good work, thank you.
It's like, the punishment is just
Like
more
a-
policies.
Yeah, go to the dentist, right?
Oh my god. Hey, I'm up to the Cs. Oh, yeah.
Any town administrator updates, Roger?
I met with Jonathan and Leah from O'Reilly, Talbot, and Oakham out at the Lombardo properties today. I met them out there, showed them around, kind of gave them a brief history of what I have found out, and then left them to their own devices to walk around and look at the foundations. They basically were going to look at the foundations and see if anything stood out to them on the foundations. I have to collect some, gather up some information out of the stack of stuff that I have to send to them. And I need to talk, to get the fire department to see if they do or if they do or don't have any information about oil tanks or anything there. And so that's what's happening there. I started the budget process today, speaking like a budget overview with departments. I've talked to 6 over the past couple days, just showing them the spreadsheets, which I'll be sending out. And alarm permits, I've been working with Chief Fahey, Brian, for them to kind of take over working on the alarm permits. They sent out 125.
Clerk or?
It would have been me.
Oh, okay.
So he asked, because some people have asked about them, I didn't really know how they worked, and then he stepped up and said he would help. So I kind of looked into it. I looked into it for a little bit, figured it out, and then worked it out with him, and he mailed out 125 of them today, I think it was. And I'm working on the MCC. I got to talk to Lori about moving forward with that, and also going out for the admin assistant. We still think I'm doing the admin assistant for the town hall.
I think if we do go the route that we were talking about with Jim, we have to re-game plan.
On the admin assistant.
Yeah.
Because we burn, even at 6 hours or 28, we
Half
burn
the-
some of the money.
Half the money.
Are we sure it should be 6 hours is one question. How do we get to 6 hours?
I can give you some background.
Yeah.
One thing is, so she works 20 hours a week in Marlboro, so that's somewhat limiting.
Mhm.
And then, but I think it's 5 days a week, 4 or 5 days a week, 4 days a week. And I think they want that because it's a benefited position.
Right.
So there's only so much flexibility with that schedule, going on in Marlboro. And then I asked Roger, how much time do you spend on highway stuff a week? And I think you said 4 to 6.
4 to 6 hours a week, yeah.
Is that beyond the invoices or is that other stuff?
It's mostly invoices, but I think that it'll give that person the opportunity to help us out with other things, like
Right.
Jim's business, like Jim said, other things, looking up for different grants that he may have been doing. It gives him that option there. So, I mean, you've been spending what?
I guess
5, 6
this week
hours a
went
week.
better. I would say it was probably 4.5 hours. Last pay period, or last payable period, there's quite a few invoices that came in late. They were dated back to July of this year. I understand the guy's frustration, but if we're gonna look at what we're doing, there's gotta be this other side that says, okay, you get an invoice that's down here in 48 hours. Some of them, even if you had the person Tuesday and Wednesday, and they have to be faxed at 3, you can't dump them on Monday, Wednesday day, 15, invoices and expect this person to process. So when you look at the process, you gotta go back to A and say, this is how it's gonna be defined. Because I understand their frustration, it's real, but, from doing it for a month now, I'm like, okay, last week, they all came dumped in at Thursday morning. So, but they had to be processed, that's why when I was telling Roger earlier today, God, there should be a computer program, because you're inputting so many damn numbers. You take like the AT&T is like, their invoice number's 12 digits, and you do like 6 of those, so, it's an interesting process, but, I think, I agree, we need to look at it all, and if we decide we need to hire that person, but there also has to be a process, invoices will be in this building by a certain time. Because if that person's working Tuesday, Wednesday, and they bring them in on Thursday morning, who's gonna do it?
Or they're gonna sit there not done for the following
Yeah,
cycle.
but then
and
you're gonna go through that
Right.
cycle they don't get.
Right.
If you leave them sitting around the office, they get lost or whatever. So, I understand their frustration, I'm not trying to discredit it. But there's also, when we're gonna look at the process, go from A to Z, they gotta be here.
And, I feel like, I said this before, I'm gonna say it again. When that invoice comes into this building, it should be dated. It should,
Right,
the
yeah.
date, that day, the minute it walks in there, it gets stamped with a date. Because if they're bringing in a July invoice in December and complaining that it wasn't paid and it walking in the middle of December, that's not on this building.
I know.
Like,
I'm not saying they did that, but.
Aren't some coming in email too? Email?
I get,
Hard copy?
yeah,
But
it's
do you
hard to
print out a
say
PDF?
the percentage, but yeah, there's a significant amount that come by email. I print.
But when you say they come, do they come email with a PDF attached to it?
Yeah,
'Cause
email with the invoice. Yeah, I mean, there have been some that, I've missed and someone calls up and I say, oh yeah, I found it, and I put it in and it gets processed the next week, the next pay period. Because they get in the email system and they kind of get buried and then I try to print them out.
In the last two, I've only done 2 cycles, it's a roughly 40 to 45. There's 9 on a sheet, and we're getting into 9.
12.
There's 12, yeah, okay, so, yeah, there's 12, so it's closer to 48 to 55, I would say.
So are you saying you would do a different amount of hours for?
Well, I just don't know, I mean, the thing I think you have to be careful with here is our rate of labor goes up. We're not the first person in the world handling an invoice. And really, you have to start looking at technology. First of all, like with Roger, we'll find out about this budget stuff. We're doing away with the Excel, we're gonna have a budget sheet. There's gotta be accounts payable software, and I'm not saying rush out and buy it, but we should start looking at that option, because labor is tight. 2 is like, you can have a drop-down menu for like the Department of DPW. Here's the vendors they use. They're not going through an alphabetical sheet that's 12 pages long, and 20% of them aren't any good because they say inactive on the side of them. Stuff like that. So there's things that we should start considering, because you may hire this person, they may quit in 6 months, you're back at, where you were. So there's technology.
Whether we can automate it.
Make it
straightforward.
automated, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we should look at it. I mean, we do have a problem, I acknowledge that, but I think we, okay. Our labor rate's going up for this, and, you start spending. What's the software budget, monthly payment for the, doing the budget?
It's $9,000 annual.
Yeah.
So.
If we're paying someone, 6 hours a week, there starts to be a return on payment. I just let the numbers tell the story, but I'm just like, we have a system that is very archaic.
It is.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God. No wonder people drink.
Well,
The question is whether or not the person would only be entering
Well-
receipts, because, no, I'm just
No.
saying in terms of hours, it's an add-on, it's
Right.
not, it's meaning what you're saying. Because if they're filling out chapter 90 paperwork, or like documenting that a project is finished for chapter 90, or whatever those things are in addition, that's a different skill, it's not necessarily just
That's
receipts.
true.
And I don't know how many hours that is.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Hey, Eileen,
Just remember, this might be a great 10-hour-week job for the senior tax write-off program.
Eileen,
It can't be, so.
Eileen, we're talking about someone who works 20 hours a week in New Water, who's been doing this for years over there, and has a relationship with the chapter 90 state
Yeah,
office.
yeah.
No.
We're not talking, and that's, I think, the difference here, and it seems high, and you look across the town, but we're talking about someone who has existing relationships and expert knowledge to come into town
I
and
agree.
use that and get a lot done in a few hours.
I agree, but what I'm saying is if you need support for that, or organization, or time stamping, or wraparound services, think that worked very well for this town for a while, that there might be a way to, make sure they're all logged in or something by a different person. That's all I'm saying.
We've had so many senior tax work-offs that are success stories, and we got a lot done, and they're going, there's a lot to show for it. But also, on the other side, there's only so much you can expect from someone that you're not really paying.
It is an hourly wage, and you do get a big reduction on your tax bill, so. I'm just saying, if
Yeah.
you need extra hands, or there's like a small thing, that's a good option for that. As you're paying someone else the higher salary, which I understand it, and I agree, it's well worth it to balance it. That was my only point. I'll shut up.
Also, I did, two not exactly related things, but I did talk to Lindsay about my concern over the MCC title being director.
I saw that Lori let me know about that.
And, I didn't see.
Oh, she wrote up that job posting that was posted. there.
Right, it was in the job posting. Lindsay does concur with me that director doesn't really seem appropriate for the nature of that job, and then it could in fact give people a false sense of the nature of the job.
Mhm.
Um,
Are you looking more at a coordinator?
I mean, I realize that they're concerned about the title, and I understand why, but as far as that job description, looking through it, it isn't really managerial. They're not managing people. They're not managing, I mean, the only directors we have is the highway, who manages 5 people and $1 million worth of budget. And I don't think that that position is really directorial, and I, make me the bad guy, that's okay. I would say events coordinator maybe. I'm open to other titles, but I think that the concept of director, if I was looking through, would give me a different sense of that job. They're not supervising people, they're not supervising hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of budget. And there's nothing in the job description about grants. The grants that were written, as I understand it, are cultural council grants, which, as I also understand it, are not actually competitive. So I just feel like it's not realistic, and it gives people false expectations of the job.
Mhm.
Um,
What, should we invite Lori
I also feel like
or should?
some of what happened in the last few months is at least in part because I feel like the MCC was like a separate thing, and now it's under the town. And they have a budget line, but I think there's a lack of clarity in terms of what the job responsibilities are for the appointed MCC committee
Mhm.
and who the coordinator / director answers to, and works with, and what the flow of communication needs to be.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking that that's something that maybe needs to get worked out, not necessarily in this room in a public meeting.
Right.
I don't know whether, it doesn't I'm willing to do it, I'm not here to do it, but I'm willing to do it. I mean, Justin, your mom isn't working here anymore, you should do it.
You can vote on it this time, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so the way we have it on our chart is that they report to the committee, and the director, coordinator reports to the committee in the same way that the agent reports to the Concom, or the outreach worker reports to the Council on Aging. Those 3 are right in a row here. So when all these 3 people have had employee reviews in the past,
Right,
there was the chair of one of these volunteer boards
right, reviewing,
and the town administrator reviewing them.
okay,
So it is a chain of command. It's a little bit complicated because it's not just all full-time employees of the town. We have a full-time employee of the town, a volunteer committee, and then a part-time employee of the town. So it's a little bit different, but I think that structure I would follow. I think if we wanna revisit what is the committee's mission, it's been a while since we've
Yeah.
done that, and I'm not opposed to reviewing it. I'm happy to have Lori in next week to talk about which title. I also know that the posting of the job is going to be delayed until we make that decision, which is, it is what it is, and we're coming up on holidays anyway.
I just feel like some of that conversation maybe should happen before the public meeting, because a lot of times that's more productive.
Yeah.
We're leaving Monday, right?
So I'm just, And maybe I'm wrong, but I do feel like there were communications gaps and misunderstandings that contributed, and now that we're gonna take on a new person, I think it would be wise to make sure that there's clarity in how things work and what the process is and how information flows before that person comes on board.
Oh, I agree with that.
However, that needs to happen. I'm not committed to any particular process.
I think I agree with you, we wanna look at what happened and prevent some of the same,
Learn from it.
and learn from it. I think also, if you look at the actual job description, and I know they were gonna take a look at it, I'm not sure, it pretty clearly lays out, maintain a schedule, pay bills, check the answer machine and email.
Yeah.
Promote programs, so I feel like in some ways, this is pretty clear.
Oh, I didn't think that the job description wasn't clear.
Yeah.
I meant what the process in the town. In other words, like, what the budget's like, the things that wouldn't be in the job description, they don't belong in the job description,
Yeah.
right? Like, when you come on board, you're onboarding. When can you expect a raise? When you get your annual review, because it's not on your hire anniversary. Who does that with you? What is the MCC committee is making the budget? Do they understand what that process involves and why it's important to be prepared for the budget process and what they need to do to make a good case to support whatever they wanna do on their budget? I'm like, I feel like we didn't do enough to support all of that, to make sure that everyone was clear on what the process was and what reasonable expectations were for that pathway. And maybe that won't happen again now because of this, but I just don't wanna make the same mistakes.
Right.
So it wasn't the job description, other than the
Yeah.
title, I have no problem with the job description. It's the communications, like, I didn't know before I talked to RJ that he had been writing grants. And that would've been a good thing to know, right? Like, and maybe that's on me because I'm not going to the committee meetings, but I wish there were a process to have information, when people feel like they're not appreciated, but the information isn't flowing, like, you can go to an event, you don't necessarily know
Well,
where the money came from.
Part of the problem was he did come to me. I
Right.
think unfortunately by the time that he came to me, he had kind of made up his mind.
Yeah.
And when I laid out the process, which probably should have been laid out the year prior,
Right.
I mean, I think to some degree had kind of already made up his mind, because I just said, this is how the annual budget process works, and we do evaluations in December, and then that was that, so, but he did come to me. And I also did say the select board would get him a response in writing, which I was prepared to do the following week, but then we were gonna meet with the committee, and then I learned that he had quit anyway, so.
Right.
And then we did write him a letter, but I was prepared to have the select board sign a letter saying this is the process, and
I just feel like if he had understood, if both he and the committee had understood what the process was and why it was like that at the outset, there would be a realistic expectation of what would happen going forward.
Yes.
And I think expectations really matter to people, right? It keeps keeping your expectations in line with reality. When those things clash, it can really be
Right.
disastrous. So I just wanna see that doesn't happen again, and I'm not sure what we need to do to get that there, like.
You need to have conversations. That's what we need.
Mark, sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure you had the latest and greatest job description.
Yeah, I did,
Because we went through that.
I went to the old one accidentally, but I do have the new one.
She sent it.
She said,
She sent it up today.
oh, is it different than the one that I have from you? Roger?
I guess, I didn't see anyone.
Mine
I don't have one
is
from
Monday
Lori.
at 9:14, so I don't have one from Lori either.
I thought,
This is from,
The only one I have is the one that.
this is
I know
from
there's the one that
Roger,
she sent.
CC to you and Frank.
She sent that to me and I forwarded that to.
Oh, sent by Lori Shaw.
So, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So we do have it.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So shall we meet with Lori next week to just discuss the title and any other lessons that we learned from the,
Yeah, I think
Sure.
so.
If you think it's, like, I just worry sometimes that doing it in this room makes it more charged.
well, I think that's part of the difficulty is some people want the position to be called director, some people want it to be called coordinator. I think that the case that you lay out for coordinator is very clear, and part of it is just, we want people to know what they're getting into. There's certain aspects of the job that are very 24/7 and responsible for the whole property. But there's other aspects that are much more like a coordinator position, and there's no employees working under that person. And there's a small budget. Like you said, our other director in town has, the 4 full-time employees, the 2 part-time employees and a $1 million budget. So it's not, in
It's
some
really
ways,
not
kind of
comparable, yeah.
I would err on the side of coordinator rather than events coordinator, cause I do feel like it's more than just the events that happen there.
Right, that's fair. I like I said, I'm in no way attached to a particular title. I just think director gives people a false expectation.
Yeah. I wonder if it makes more sense for you to talk directly with Lori, and see if it can be resolved in that way. Do you have any?
I don't have a problem, I would talk, I'm out of town starting now, so, I could talk to her first part of next week.
But we're meeting on Monday.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to
Yeah.
call. I don't have a problem doing that. And I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I'm happy to call her and still talk about it next Monday.
Yeah. And then if she wants to come in, and we're more than happy to do that, but like you said, it often isn't the most productive conversation to have everyone in this room, in this setting. So why don't you start
I'll start with
directly with her?
Okay.
Eileen?
The Finance Committee just met, and I'll tell you our takeaway from that. We will never discuss salaries or try to be helpful. We will refer it right back to the select board or the board chair, so that our words do not get minced. And in our next minute, you'll see the clarity of what I asked. So thank you for your attention.
I think that is good, because I think it was a little bit difficult when I was talking to RJ. I said, at the end of the day, select board is the employer, not the finance committee.
We said that, yeah.
But, so I think that is, if you wanna refer people with personnel and HR questions to
We
us,
just discussed it.
I think that's good. Just to go back to a couple of items that were brought up earlier, the environmental, the Lombardo property, Dean reached out. Did you say it was by the 27th that they're gonna have it?
That's what we're trying for, yes, yeah.
Um,
I know it's around the holidays.
10 days.
So,
You got one, you got Christmas.
They think they can get, on their side, they believe they can get the DEP, the databases, EPA, state federal databases within a couple days, and then they'll have whatever they need. So, and then I'll give them, I gotta go through the stack, pull out the stuff for them.
So Dean asked me, I also came up with another idea regarding the deed last minute. So even though we had approved it last week, we put in a clause specifically allowing kayak racks, unless anyone's opposed to that.
I'm not opposed to
I'm
that.
not opposed to that.
Okay. So,
I did wanna come back around to the community center thing though,
okay,
and, is it okay?
well, I just wanna finish off
Yeah,
one
I'm
at a
sorry.
time, because
Sorry.
I think that is the next thing. So we finish off the Lombardo property, we're adding kayak racks, the possibility of kayak racks. It's just otherwise they might have been prohibited forever.
Right.
And
Cause that might be an active recreation versus a passive recreation, kayaking off.
the environmental is gonna be done hopefully by the 27th. And then just to totally wrap that subject up, we're meeting the 23rd and the 30th.
Right.
Right.
Hopefully, I can get the Lombardo side to sign it with notary
Prior to the third.
prior to the 30th, and we could get a notary here, and I can work on that, and sign it on the 30th. If that happens, that would be great.
I don't wanna,
Yeah.
I will throw in one thing though.
Mhm.
Is if this, what they call red flag report from the environmental comes back with a red flag.
Then we're in a different ballgame.
Yeah.
Okay,
then it's a
I just
totally-
want,
I think
Yeah.
we're trying to meet the deadline, but
Yeah.
if
there's a problem,
something
then
comes
there's a
up,
problem.
it might delay it, it might mean that it doesn't happen at all.
Possible, yeah, because they said that's always a possibility.
But if it comes
I just
back
wanted to-
clear and we can meet the end of year deadline, I think we should try to. Let's finish up on the community center director. Other than that, Susan is gonna reach out to Lori, and if Lori wants to be at Monday's meeting, we'll make that happen.
The last thing I wanted to is, Dennis asked the select board to look at another letter of support for the system, so like the HVAC system in a letter of support for that.
Essentially, the state would hire a contractor, they have a preferred list. That contractor would come in and look at all systems, including the heating system currently, and make any other recommendations for a long-term plan of maintenance for that facility.
So
Is it replacing it or just maintaining it, or just examining and maintaining it?
It will be an inspection of everything, and a
Okay.
report will come from that inspection and recommendations made.
It's currently what, heating oil or propane?
It's propane fire.
And so, it's a local match, which Monterey proposes to offer $8,000 in town funding for the project. So there currently isn't funding in the current fiscal year that was in town meeting, so this is basically saying that we support the project and that at the future annual town meeting, there'll be an article or free cash for the $8,000.
And I hate to be the bad guy all the time, but, so we're paying $8,000 of $16,000 just to evaluate the systems,
Yes.
not to actually get a new system, repair a
That's
system,
correct.
or do any other work.
16,000 to evaluate it?
That seems like a lot
They
for
do.
evaluation.
It does, but they set those, they have 3 categories. And for a town that has less than 30,000 population, it happens to be $8,000. And on a one-to-one basis, you're right, it's,
I think that I would talk to Jim Hunt, when he gets back to work and have him evaluate it. $8,000 is,
And it's actually $16,000, because it's a mess.
the total project, right?
I know, but
but that's
So
just,
is
not to actually do anything other than look at it.
Is it windows, insulation,
It's everything,
doors?
it's the entire envelope of the building that they would look at.
Yeah.
Windows, ADA, heating, and,
So what, cause I remember it being kind of, we talked about it earlier as a boiler project.
yes.
Is it plumbing, electrical, heating? Is it,
It's everything.
can we maybe see
What do
a,
we need?
can we maybe see like the
Yes.
expression of interest or more information about any paperwork, relevant paperwork on the grant, just to see
Oh, sure.
what we're getting for that $8,000?
yeah, and I think we also would be good if we had like the furnace is this old, the hot water heater's this old, and things like that.
Cause what we
Installed
usually,
when the building was built, right? Weren't they?
That was 2017. Yeah, rebuild.
Well, it was a donated used
There
furnace.
was used furnaces, right?
Right. Yes, I mean, yeah, it was used first, because 7 years isn't long enough to make it out of date anymore, except it was. So I saw your frown, and I'm like, do you also feel like $16,000 just
It
to
sounds
study
like
the questions?
To
is a lot
just
of money?
study it does sound like a lot.
I appreciate
Sorry.
thought we were getting a new thing for that.
I can give my opinion, the government gets involved and screws it. I mean, the problem they have is they can go to these large towns where they have money, and then they get in the rural areas, and our community centers and old house, and we gotta pay $8,000 per
Right.
square foot, it just seems ridiculous.
Well,
Yeah, and
we're
do we need
paying
to
it, and they're
evaluate
paying
the
it, and it's
windows and the
$16,000 to just look at the building.
I mean, I
I'll
understand what
walk
they're
in, maybe
saying, but I mean,
$16,000.
I don't know, I think, you know, look, I think, you know, we wanna invest in the community center. And we got, you know, we were all shocked about the money you know, the money for the bathroom and stuff like that. But we gotta be careful on how we spend our money. And to me, committing $16,000, I would like to know what's their charge per man hour to do that, because I've been in the wrong business all my life. You know?
Well, I'd rather spend the $8,000 on a new furnace than on a study to decide if we need a new furnace.
I think look, I don't wanna give the impression we don't wanna invest in the community center, I do. But I wanna make sure we're spending the money wisely. Ever since the inspector got in there, we have to have a bathroom, like you were saying earlier, you know, it's like, you know, there's no money trees over there.
Well,
You know,
for
we're not
$450,000,
Anti-money
we could
trees.
rent a $4,000 tent for 100 years.
There is-
Literally,
Did you consider inflation?
literally 100 years, no, I did, but yeah, the 50, the extra 50, what's the,
I mean,
There is some language in the wording of the grant that says the team at Cultural Council in Mass would look at it and possibly make adjustments. But
Well-
they don't say specifically
they don't say,
whether it's gonna be
I'd
up
be
or
careful,
down.
you know.
Dennis, can you send us, I think we're lacking a little bit of information. We can't really make a decision without.
Yeah.
If you could send us some links to the
I-
grant.
The
You know,
only,
Well, we need to understand the grants, and we need to understand what we have.
sure,
So when they did the renovation in 2017, did they replace the windows?
yes, I
Okay,
know they did.
did they do some
Yeah.
insulation, like blowing in
they
the attic?
did,
Yeah.
they did.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's all SIPS panels, so it's.
Yeah, so I mean, I still don't know.
I mean, I feel like I'd rather spend that $8,000 repairing something that needs repair, right? Rather than just assessing the building.
That's understandable. The deadline is Thursday.
But there's no equipment, because when you talked about this grant before, I thought that it involved paying for equipment and installation, but.
If that's what I thought it,
I mean, what we could use is a review of this building too. Because this building, the renovation is 20 years ago. What's that?
planning.
What, in planning what?
Planning what to do with this building.
Building,
Yeah.
With the community center, I think we actually know quite a bit
Yeah.
about
Sure.
what happened
Yeah.
and why it happened, and that was after maybe some of the efficiency stuff had moved forward. It's hard when the renovation was done within the last 10 years to say we need a study like that. And if you're putting us under the gun of a deadline.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
You know, Mark.
Yeah.
You know, it's having just, you know, I would help you develop a list for the community center, when was done what, you know. So we have it, so you can better plan your capital.
I'm pretty sure Mike Benner could just go down the list and help.
I know, but we need, does anybody know where the list is or the documentation? Then you can understand your capital 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now. You're gonna have to invest X amount of dollars in the community center. And we've been trying to work with doing that kind of planning, because everything's gotten so expensive.
I mean, if we wanted to spend the money wisely, if there's a problem with the boiler, having the boiler assessed specifically makes sense, but if we know that the building was insulated and then windows are new, at some point, I'm not sure it makes sense to spend the money to study the problem and not just to fix the problem. Like, I know you need to know what the problem is, but I also feel like if it ain't broke, why are we fixing it? I'd rather spend the $8,000 on a new boiler, if that's the problem.
Yeah, we're not saying the boiler has a problem,
Okay.
we just don't know.
Furnace, yeah.
Why don't we
When you have issues like in the summertime, right, because you have a little tiny air conditioner,
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
nice to.
In fact, they should make
Central
You
air.
could almost
an
have
HVAC
a
system.
heat pump and air conditioning.
Yeah.
Why don't we just
Or
get,
mini split.
That's,
why don't we get 2 little air conditioners? If
Well,
one doesn't
yeah,
do the
yeah.
job, that's what I would do.
They're definitely
Yeah.
less than 8,000.
Yeah,
I got a
Put
little
one
air,
in every window.
and they
To
might
dispose
actually
of it at
do
the
the
end of
job,
summer.
or even
maybe
a-
only put one on each circuit.
Some of those have gotten really efficient. You don't have to worry about that with the new kid.
But the real issue is Thursday,
Yeah.
right.
so I'm not certain that,
This
This will
grant would be for a study, not just for doing, is that correct? This grant would be for a study, not for
A study,
fixing something or doing
you know,
it.
they report on each of the systems, if you wanna call them, heating system, whatever. So
Right.
it's basically a plan. They're developing a
I
system
know,
replacement
but
plan.
it's $16,000 plan.
Yeah.
Rather than $16,000 of due is a problem for me.
I think what might be really useful here, just because most of the people who did the work are still around, and there was I know there were a lot of pictures taken at certain points during the project. Maybe it'd be worth compiling all of the permits, pictures that were taken during the project, so we have a history. So when it comes down to 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, when we need to do
And nobody remembers.
something, we have it all right there, we have the systems
Yeah.
laid out.
I'll talk to Mike tomorrow to see if I can get him to document it. For all I know, he's got a file folder on it.
Right.
It's mine.
I think we're just getting planned out
Yeah.
between the
Sure,
different plans.
so we could,
Just
you
thinking
know,
of
do
Steve
that
Moore's
and look
letter.
at it at another time.
Yeah.
We could pretend you could do that mass save where they come out and inspect your house for free.
I was thinking of that, I'm not sure if they do it for
People just say, I
government.
live there, you know? I'm running, you do mass save, they come out with the infrared.
And say, thank you boys for coming.
Kind of strange house, but you know.
I'm so happy to have my house looked at.
It's true.
You
Bring a
know,
bed
I
over
got a
there.
lot of big parking lot. I
Big
All right.
garden.
So just to lighten the mood a little bit,
want.
we got an open meeting law complaint on Sunday, I got it, about the emergency meeting in which we appointed
Molly, the,
town clerk for
yeah.
2 days. I'll put it on next week's agenda because it wouldn't be appropriate to discuss at this meeting, but Donna and I drafted a response. We'll talk about it. I'll send out the response to the open meeting law complaint. You're missing open meeting law complaints.
As long as not against me.
So we'll discuss that at next week's meeting. I think, and Donna thinks we're in the clear. In the response, you have to say whether you believe you're in violation or not. We're saying we don't believe we're in violation. There was extenuating circumstances. It's the first emergency meeting that we've called since Susan was on the board. That's how long it's been, 2.5 years. And I will send out the draft response and we'll take care of that next week when it's posted.
Okay.
So I don't have any minutes ready for this week. Is there anything else any other unanticipated business? I guess I wanna get a better sense of what we're gonna do with, the highway position and if we should just come back to that next week once we have a list, or,
Let's come back to it next week when we have the list. Jim, said he'd write up something and then let's talk about it.
And, I think then we'll have the job description for the MCC.
Yeah, we'll
Person.
put both of
And,
those on the
yeah.
agenda and we'll get it done.
do they have a job description in New Marlboro? I could ask Mark.
Oh, that's true. I mean, that would be a bigger.
Probably, but
it's a
it's
bigger
different,
position
yeah.
because it's a lot more hours.
But that's
At
a
least
starting
it-
place.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
at least you could parse it down.
Right.
I can ask her.
And then, yeah, with the community center, we'll just try to hammer that out. Any other comments and questions from
The public?
the public?
Is Nikki okay? She hasn't been here.
It's
I
the
know.
second one, she
Yeah.
should call the police.
I don't know.
I haven't seen her. Usually I bump into her.
You know, call her tomorrow.
Has she been into town hall
I haven't seen her.
Just,
I haven't seen her in the library.
actually, I think the day after the last meeting, she came in.
at all?
I did tell her though that if she doesn't come to 2, we worry.
Tell her.
We'll meet again next Monday, so we gotta have the agenda posted for
Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
What's on there other than what we just mentioned?
the open meeting law complaint, the community center position, the administrative assistant,
Oh, I don't-
the land donation.
I have a donation from the police department,
For the, or from the?
for the
For
police
the,
department.
okay.
Eileen?
Oh, just, we worked on the budget process,
Mhm.
and, Roger, we worked on it with Roger and the finance committee, we'll be sending it out, changing some of the dates and the COLA stuff. And, the finance committee would like to know if on that February 18th, I believe, is the Tuesday, that it might make sense for Roger to present the total budget. So just wanted to put that date in your hat. Maybe make
February
that
what?
18th, because it's by February 15th, he has to submit the budget to the select board and the finance committee. So that is, we made it like an annual calendar, that's a Sunday.
The
So
Tuesday,
then
right,
that
yeah.
Tuesday, I think is the 17th, whatever that Tuesday is. We thought we could maybe have a joint meeting and then start, meeting maybe weekly after whatever we need. So we just wanted to put that schedule on your agenda.
Are we doing meetings with the departments?
Yep.
Dividing up like we did previously?
In early January, right. So the new Roger, I'll send it to Roger, the new schedule will be coming out, he'll tweak it a little.
And, you've been doing preliminary budget meetings with some departments, right?
Yes, I had some meetings this week where today, I had meetings today and, Monday. Just kind of showing what the spreadsheet looks like and how to use the spreadsheet and, that I created.
So not so much the budget itself, but how to use the budget software.
It's not the budget software.
Not the budget.
No,
the
no,
interim.
I decided not to do that this year because it was just too tight of
Right,
a time period for everything else, and that starting next summer, probably, I'll start doing, into the early fall, I'll start doing trainings on the new software,
Okay.
so that they'll have it then. So this is kind of like a hybrid solution.
Will
My
you be
plan-
using the new software?
Yeah, my plan-
Once you get the
Yeah, yeah.
inputs?
My plan is to gather up all the information and put it into the new software, so that we, the select board, the finance committee, and myself will be using the new software this year.
fewer people to train.
Yeah, and just for the record, we love this spreadsheet because it takes a lot of the factors that we've been asking, Roger did a great job, a lot of the factors we've been asking for and makes them formal so we can have more data to make decisions in front of us.
Question? Yeah, we have a Lake Hartford Working Group meeting this Thursday. Is there a preliminary budget meeting scheduled for that group?
I don't actually have a spreadsheet for you. I did talk to Mike about that. Mike said something, he asked me about if it was, if I had a spreadsheet for him and for the group, and I don't, because I don't really know like what you want to put. So what I've been doing is I've essentially been taking our current account structure and bringing over those account codes and putting them in a spreadsheet.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys want an electric line item, if you just want an expense line item, if you want telecommunication line item. So I'd rather look and get their spreadsheet, the spreadsheet, and then
Sure.
that you've created, and then sort of put that into the spreadsheet I have, because the spreadsheet I have, I'm using, uses data back to 2022, so it really wouldn't quite fit into it. But the plan is to take that and kind of massage it in there.
Yeah, we have a bunch of categories. It almost looks like a scope of services.
Yeah,
So we can hone
Good.
those down.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
I've suggested to them that, large capital items be considered as part of the capital budget process. as opposed to the operating budget process.
Yep, yep.
If that's.
So,
makes sense.
capital has, you know, in municipal government has its own definition, and it's
Sure.
$25,000 or more, has to be, survive more than 5 years.
Yeah.
So some people are like, oh, I wanna spend $5,000 and that's capital. But I usually look at it as, what is it outside of your actual budget that you might think, so.
Yeah, I don't
like-
think the weed harvesting would not qualify as a capital.
Or for,
Exactly.
or for example,
The dam.
the dam, running electricity up to it and putting all that stuff in there. That's a big capital expense that's outside.
That's probably the only one.
Yeah, we have a capital worksheet that'll help you think through that, so even if you don't, you can send it to him, even if you don't make it a capital item, it'll ask you all those questions. How big is the project? How many years? How much money? So I would suggest you use that in planning.
It's a good idea.
The second thing to that is, we have two people here who both asked about being added to the budget, and I don't know if there is a formal process. Rob asked about the Historical Society and.
Historical Commission.
Commission, and so I said he should write me an email, and then as the chair of the finance committee, and I would write to Roger and add. So I don't know how we wanna also formalize, we kind of did that at the town meeting, agreeing there that we will do the Lake Garfield working group and make them, but I just think we might wanna have a policy or process and how we add. new
It's the
ones.
select board and the finance committee agreeing to it, that's all.
Okay,
We
so
don't need to overcomplicate it.
so we didn't agree to Rob, so how do we do that?
Well, Rob, if
I
you
wanna
say, I want
Still
$250 for the
submit-
website,
submit a
and
request.
So the process we outlined is good, that's
Yeah.
all I'm asking,
Right.
yeah, okay, good.
same thing with like Garfield Work Group, just tell us what money you want.
Yeah.
Eileen will say no.
No, Eileen will ask 40 questions and kick it to Frank. No, but the reason I do say that, Justin, is I say simple, but then
So have a
we can,
parking meter on the
we
beach.
can be opening a floodgate. So, I think we have to be careful, like saying, just ask us and tell us what you need and we'll put it in the budget. So, that was something we definitely decided at town meeting. This has been a long operating commission that we appoint that hasn't had a budget. So I do think we need some standards in what
Well,
we add.
I think to Justin's point, if the select board voted for it and the finance committee voted against it, you know what I mean? You have to have an actual vote.
We're saying
About
they
adding
need
it in.
to
Okay.
ask, and then we need to discuss.
Okay,
and
I
make a
just wanna
decision.
make sure, I agree, keep it very simple, which is what I told them, but
Just
I
like
wanted to
any-
make sure we knew that we two knew.
Like any other agenda.
But let's not do theoreticals, let's say, Rob, you'll put forward which you
Yeah.
always do, you always give us all the information we need,
Yeah,
and we'll go from there.
yeah.
Yeah, so this will be the first time.
We have a
we're,
budget meeting,
We
right?
wanna submit to the,
So you
select board
could just send me an email or whatever.
and say,
And
this is,
tomorrow,
for.
tomorrow, 12 to 1, you could come be trained by Roger on the process.
So, we need to learn how to do the process, but the
That's
first
tomorrow,
was
12
to
to 1.
request
Yeah,
that we want to
Yeah,
make
that's
a
what we're
request. So that's what we're doing.
oh, it's exciting, actually.
I wonder if, no. Renewable Energy Working Group is still surviving off of ARPA money.
Yep.
So they don't need a budget.
Thank God.
Alright,
I have one other thing, actually, circling back to the Lombardo property.
yeah,
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask for Jerry whether you brought up with them the idea of pickleball courts, because I know that's.
No quotes.
He said no courts.
It's
Did you-
hard, it's a
Yeah.
hard no.
It's a hard no on that.
it was simply stated as passive recreation in the
Mhm.
deed. But
Well,
when
they
we
don't
asked,
move very fast.
when we asked the attorney to
Seems-
define passive recreation, unfortunately, she said, watching baseball could be considered passive recreation,
Well-
even though playing baseball would be active. And at that point, we were asked to put in a specific prohibition on athletic fields. So that's the way, it's not even just saying it needs to be passive recreation. There's a specific prohibition on athletic fields, so.
Yeah.
It's hard, we're getting a gift, it's
Yeah.
hard to, we don't have much leverage.
But a dog park would be possible, right?
Yeah, the way I understand it.
Dog
Also could be possible on the community center ground, just saying. What, pickleball or?
Pickleball?
Or both.
I move that we adjourn.
Yeah, I think
Second.
that's a rabbit hole.
Call vote,
Yes.
yes.
See you next Monday.
Meeting
Joe.
adjourned at 7:28 PM.
I predicted 7:30, so I'm good.
Good job.
Thank